Hey guys, and welcome to today's episode of the Spiritual Evolution Podcast. I am so excited to share this conversation with you that I got to have with Marianne, aka Witch Mom from TikTok is where we met, and she's an incredible, well experienced witch, and she is also a therapist. So we got to talk about a lot of really interesting topics, and I'm excited to share this with you guys, and I hope you have an incredible day and enjoy the interview. Thank you. I'm so grateful. I really do look up to you like a lot. I love everything that you do, and I love that you you're so good at mentoring and being kind of that guide for us. So thank you.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
So my first question is, how or when did you realize that you were gifted spiritually?
I don't know that I would say gifted. I would definitely say that I knew that I was different, and knew that I was probably a witch really, really young, like 5 or 6. And I remember my family telling I was so excited to tell my family. And I remember telling my grandmother, I figured it out. And she was like, no, no, we don't do that. I was just
right.
And why? But I've always been a very spiritual person. So no matter what I was doing spiritually, I always kind of threw my whole self into it. So even as a little kid.
Yes, it was like that when I was a little girl too, and I was raised in a Catholic household, so it was very so I completely know what you're saying. No. I had a deck of cards and they were like, no.
Yeah. I started to have really strange spiritual experiences, and my mom, God bless her for all of the things that she did that she didn't do right. This one she did really, really right. And she tried to understand more than push it down. Right. But she did take me to the parish priest to be like, what do I do?
So did mine. Oh my gosh. When I was going through my first very difficult awakening and everything, I missed a month of school. It was and my mom was like, we'll take you to the priest, he'll help. And he did ease my mind a little bit. And because I was I have to save the world and the world's not savable. That's where I was at. And it was really scary at the time because there was none of all of everything there is now. And it's great that there is that the resource in the community now. And I'm happy that it's starting to finally sink in, that there's a lot more to it than just woo woo.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is one thing that has happened in meditation or even spell work that you'll never forget?
Just one?
I was just gonna say we could do just one. There's a lot of questions.
I think it's I'll give you the most important one, right? So when I had tried really hard to be a good Catholic, and it just was not working for me. And I was kind of hybridizing my Wiccan practice with going to church and volunteering at this Catholic school. And I was really confused. And I was sitting out one night in the backyard with my little bowl of water doing a moon ritual and just crying my eyeballs out that I just didn't know what to do. And I didn't know what was next, and what's the right way. And I don't mean a little sniffle crying. I mean my whole body crying.
Yep.
And just at this one moment in the kind of meditation part of that ritual, this female voice, it kind of came out of my awareness and said, stop. You are not going to hell. Nothing is wrong. I am real. Relax.
Wow.
And my body stopped crying.
Yeah, I just got chills a minute ago.
It just went. And so for me, that was probably the most important moment, right? Experience of really having whatever you want to call the divine goddess, God, doesn't matter, right? That voice came through and said, it's okay. You're okay. Right?
Wow. That's so beautiful. Those kind of experiences really can change your whole perspective.
Completely.
Yeah. So let's see. What is one concept that you've learned over the years that you would like to teach the world given the chance?
Wow. Oh, what a good question.
I love
I
that
could spend a
question.
week on that. Like
Right?
if I could, I would say that probably the most important thing is that love is not just a feeling, love is an action. Love is a decision.
A way of life.
Yeah, and everything we do can be done with love, whether it's spell work or buying coffee or buying groceries
Mm-hmm.
or loving your kid or, it's all
Right.
it's it doesn't have to be complicated. Love is something that you do, not something that you feel.
Uh-huh.
So,
That's beautiful. I love this. I'm so happy we're talking. Let's see. How would you define the line of what to share on social media, in like your craft and stuff, the line between like keeping what's sacred and sharing what you can share?
I've
I mean,
done
it's all sacred.
yeah, I mean, it's all sacred, but I mean, I've done a lot of both. Like I have, I try really hard to balance my like I have done some public rituals that that I let people into virtually and
Me
online.
too, yeah.
And that's okay. Like I try to be careful. I always have somebody moderating in case we get like stupid Zoom bombed or something. Um uh but I try to keep it simple-ish. Like
Right.
not I want to be careful because I've shared a lot of like spell work and stuff online
Mhm.
that's a little more complicated, a little more advanced, but it's more advanced in the concepts, not in the execution, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
I feel like that's kind of where that's maybe what distinction I would draw. Like people are smart. People can handle complex ideas, but
Right.
sharing complex rituals maybe not so much.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It does. Um, if you could instantly know everything about one subject, what would it be and why?
Oh my
That one came to me when I was like writing up your question.
oh my
Like,
gosh, that is so awesome. I don't know. I mean,
um,
yes, magic, but to me that's life. Like that's
mhm.
life is magic, right?
Right.
But it's I mean, I honestly I don't think I can answer that. I don't
Yeah.
answer. I would want to know everything.
I know. I know. It's like if I can know one, I can know it all then, right?
Yeah, right. Like if I exactly like if I know everything about magic, or if I know everything about horses, or if I know everything about the moon, like then that means that it would connect to everything and
Right.
know everything about everything. So.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Perfect answer. So I wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit about like free will and the laws of magic and how to kind of balance that and working in that.
Well,
Just a little bit.
you do your homework. You do. These are good questions. Okay, so free will is from the way I was trained. Free will is this idea that you are a sovereign soul unto yourself, endowed with divinity, that nobody has the right to do anything to interfere with.
Mhm.
Right? You have your own divinity. You are a reflection of the goddess. Therefore, nobody has the right to come in and do anything to interfere with that self-sovereignty, right? That's
Mhm.
free will. The different laws and keys of magic have to do with influencing everything that you have influence on. So if I want to say, okay, I'm going to do a spell so that Andrew and I can have a conversation every Friday, right? Like,
Mhm.
then I have to accept that that is only going to go as far as you are allowing my free will to
Mhm.
influence you. And if you do not have a lot of investment in your own free will, it's really easy to influence you.
Oh, yeah.
So
That makes a lot of sense.
people who work on their will
Right.
tend to be people who are less easily influenced magically. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean they're not influenced, but I may not have a particular worry about, somebody who wants to send me I don't know, good
Mm-hmm.
around healing or something like that. Like that, if I don't have any boundaries about that, then it'll be fine. I'll receive the healing and there will be no issue.
Right.
Someone like my mom, who she's passed away now, but like she would not have wanted any healing from anybody that was not her faith. And
Mm-hmm.
like, wouldn't
Yeah.
work. Even if you had the best of intentions, it wouldn't have worked.
Yes, I don't remember what I was listening to, but I was listening to something a few days ago and they were talking about how with healers, like if someone is saying like it's not going to work, it's not going to work, and then they go to this healer and it doesn't work, and they're saying, "See, I was right." It's the healer did their job to like confirm for them that like that's their belief is right, but it's really like the basis of what you believe in, and if it's going to work or not is up to your free will, right? I can't impose healing on somebody
Right.
unless they want to accept the healing.
Well, and part of it too, there's another piece that's really subtle, which is that if you have a need to be proven wrong, then it's still not going to work. Right. Like if you're like, I need you to prove to me it's going to work, so heal me,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to work
Right.
because
Right.
you have this subtle belief that it's not real.
Yes. Yeah, that really does. It connects it connects all the dots for me. Yeah. Um, let's see. Do you believe in reincarnation?
Yes, and my beliefs in reincarnation have evolved over the
Me
years.
too. Yeah.
So I don't believe in, well, let me put it this way. I don't believe that it's limited to the idea of life after life after life.
Right.
I think that time is all happening at one time. And so I could
Yes.
be multiple people all at the same time. Um, all happening right now. So, and
Mm-hmm.
that feeds into my belief about the nature of divinity. So,
Right. And that's like I listened to a lot of like channelings and stuff lately. And Bashar, he was talking about how, everything is all happening now. And that's how you're able to like anybody can tap into the like Christ consciousness or Cleopatra. And like all of these people say that they've had, a past life as Cleopatra, but every one of those people is just tapping into her energy at that particular time. Because it's all right, it's all now in the
yeah.
multiverse. Yes. um do you work with any deities, and have you stopped working with any over the years? Like have you had any experience with anything like interesting in that area?
Several interesting happen. There's none that I don't work with anymore. When I was 18, 19, I thought it would be really cool to dedicate myself to the horse goddess Epona because I liked horses, but I'd never been around them. I hadn't ridden or done anything like that. And so I did this whole dedication ritual to be a devotee of hers and be her priestess.
Mhm.
And I have had horses in my life now consistently since I'm 26. So, and I'm in my 50s now.
Wow.
So yeah. So that she made sure that happened.
That's incredible. Horses are such beautiful creatures. I had a friend that had a barn when I was in high school, and I loved to go there. I never rode, but I rode when I was like a little girl when I went to camp and stuff. I never had my own.
They're
But
really,
that's
really
incredible.
phenomenal. Yeah, and it's been a really fascinating relationship with that particular goddess. And
Yeah.
then I used to be part of the priestess of a Wiccan church many many years ago, and we used to do this big public ritual every Samhain where there would be one priestess that would go around as the crone and take everybody's kind of junk from the year from
Oh,
them.
wow.
And there was a maiden who would go around and give them something for the new year. And I was almost
Hmm.
always the crone, and that used to wipe me out. It would
Yes.
wipe me
Oh,
out, but
I believe it.
I loved it and I had a
Right.
lot of really powerful experiences. And what was interesting was, people, I still have letters that people wrote to me afterwards saying this, here's what happened for me. And I had no idea that that's what
Yeah.
people. So
Right. That's always such a beautiful experience to hear, like days, weeks, months, however long after, like what an impact that, time like that moment had on their lives and everything.
yeah.
That's incredible. Um, what does a typical day look like for you? If there's a typical
There,
day.
I mean, there is. I'm a therapist, so like my days are
Okay.
pretty full. But my like typically I get up between 5 and 6 in the morning. I exercise for 20 minutes. I meditate for 20 minutes. I take a bath, not a shower, every day.
Oh, nice.
I need that immersion
Yeah.
water. I don't have any water in my chart, so I need like that
Right. I love my
water.
baths. Yeah. Not every day. That sounds incredible. I get up between like 6 and 7. So maybe if I got up a little
No,
earlier.
but you also have a child. You get a bit of a pass. You know, that makes a big difference. So
Yeah. My parents are here helping right now because they like come over to help me when I'm doing this because it is definitely a lot.
for sure.
But
So
yeah, that sounds like a lot like my morning. I do like my yoga for 20 minutes and I meditate and do breath work and stuff. And the morning, and it's funny because when I ask people this question, a lot of times it's like the morning routine, especially like those early, like the early morning before sunrise. And I never thought I'd be someone that got up that early. And now I'm like, well, I need this time for myself.
yeah, totally. That's exactly it. That's exactly
Mhm.
yeah.
So let's see. What is one major realization that you have had over the years that has been like a little bit more bitter than sweet, or just
Bitter than
bittersweet?
sweet. How about hard?
Yeah, difficult.
So,
Yeah.
so I think the hardest one has been that not everybody wants to have a direct experience of the divine.
Mm-hmm.
Most people like the priest or priestess being in the middle. It keeps them
Right.
safe. It doesn't mess up their worldview,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives them a little protection from having to do the work.
Yes. Wow.
And
Yeah.
that's definitely been the hardest. Like I remember, teaching classes and one-on-one lessons with students. And I had this one student one time, and I had taken a break from teaching, and she was a friend of a friend, and she's like, oh, please, 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 I really want to learn. And I was like, okay. It's like, well, what do you want to learn? I can teach you this way, or I can teach you eclectic Wicca, or I can teach you Gardnerian Wicca. That's kind of how we can move forward. She said, oh, I really want to do Gardnerian. I was like, okay. Not my favorite because it's very ritualistic. It's very like the rules are very like you always do the same thing the same time every time.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Not there's creativity, but it's more limited. And and so she's like, I really want to learn Gardnerian. I'm like, okay, I can do that. So she comes to the very first time, and I've created all these lessons for her, and she's like, well, why do we have to cast a circle this way? Why can't we cast it another way? And I was like, because it's Gardnerian. She's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, yes, it does. In the same way that if you wouldn't tell a Catholic that they could just change the Hail Mary, that
Right.
it wouldn't be the Hail Mary anymore. This would be so we can change it to where I teach you eclectic Wicca, which is fine, and you can then cast circle however you want, as long as it's in the right direction. But you can't call it Gardnerian and turn it into what you want it to be.
That's eclectic, right?
So, and that was just, I think I did maybe a month of work with her, and it was so frustrating. I just was like,
yeah, like I would say one of the most difficult things that I've had to, come to terms with is the fact that I can't like I can't like get them to see it my way or like see the greater picture, especially like with my parents and stuff. It's been hard, but I've realized like the more that I like don't like try and push it and I just lead by example, it like really does like plant the seeds without you even trying, like
totally.
So yeah, that's definitely sounds like kind of a very similar.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because like when I'm guessing you're in your 20s.
27, yeah.
So I was about the same age as you, and I was running this big Wiccan congregation in New Orleans, and my dad was always kind of hands off. He's like, whatever, kid, you do. But he had an opinion. He just didn't share it with me. And he was visiting, and I had a radio interview to do, and he said, well, I'll go with you, and then we'll go have lunch. I was like, okay. And, I was sitting in the booth doing the interview, and he's listening to the whole thing, of course. And I got out, and he's like, oh my God, I had no idea that's what you believed. That's totally normal. And I was like, yeah, it's totally normal, Dad. He's like, I could, yeah, I'm not worried anymore. I'm like, you were worried? And he's like, well, I wasn't going to tell you. It was like, okay. But
Yeah.
once he heard it, it's like, no, we can't know what God is. We have no way of knowing, but we can define it
No.
for ourselves to make it more approachable to us.
Right. Absolutely. It's you can't like wrap your head around it, but you can exactly, yeah, you can give it some kind of a label for us to have that human like concept and understanding.
And if you believe that the ideas that we have that we're connected, then why wouldn't you invite whatever that connection is?
Right.
Opposed to defining it for me so that I only see it through your window, through your way, through your colors, through your identity. It doesn't make any that is not going to help me with my connection. If that's what you want.
Right. It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't help the soul growth that we came here for. And yeah, like I when I was doing a live once, my dad will come in to like see the baby and stuff when I'm on live sometimes in the afternoon. And one time I was on there and he like came up before he left and he started doing this. I was like, what are you doing? So I was talking about like being your higher self. And he's like, I'm being my higher self. I was like, what? Like totally out of left field. Like I didn't expect that at all. So it really does. It's weird how it works that way, but it just like the less you try sometimes, like the less attachment to something, the more simple it can flow and the more easy it happens. Let's see. What is one of the most powerful spells that you've ever done? If you would like to share.
Most powerful. I can tell you a story of don't do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
So I was married to a man before I was married to the man I'm married to now. And that marriage was very short and very fraught with drama. And it lasted about 2 years. And he was from France and he decided he was going to break up with me. And he'd had a bunch of affairs. It was just a mess. And so I did this very powerful spell to get him back. And it was so dumb because I like put everything into it. And when I was doing that part of the spell where you say what you want and you make it clear which outcome you want, I got exactly what I asked for, which was I asked for him to say he wanted to come home, not for him to have a change of heart and be a different person.
Right.
So we broke up on around July 1st or July 4th, something like that. And then we were both invited to a bunch of parties because he was French, to a bunch of Bastille Day parties in New Orleans. And we negotiated. I said, I'm going to go to these parties. You can't come to my parties. And if you want to switch, we can switch, but let's do it in advance. And he was like, yeah, sure. And then he showed up at one of my parties and told me he wanted to come home and came back home with me, made crazy passionate love to me. And the next morning was in his car driving away to New York with his best friend. And the caveat to this spell was that I said, if he doesn't want to stay with me, I want to see him suffer. Bad. So every time this man stubbed his toe, lost a job, broke up with a girlfriend, he called me. I was the one that he reached out to and was like, I need help. I need blah, blah, blah. Every time until I broke the spell. I had to break the spell a year later.
Yeah.
And I do not recommend that kind of work for numerous reasons.
Right.
The least of which is you're going to get what you ask for.
Yeah, that's insane. It's funny that you say the 4th around that time because it was like that date was cursed for me and my ex, and I was with him for almost a decade, and every 4th of July without flaw, like something happened, like whether it was like we got separated and I got stuck with these like drug dealer, like it was just always something really 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 bad that happened on the around or on the 4th of July, or leading up to it. It was the weirdest thing. And then my son, he was born in July.
Oh, wow.
Funny at the end, but July 24th actually, now that I think about it. So
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's
it's
funny because
very.
I have a July 4th thing too. Like all of my important relationships, when they end in the first week of July.
Yeah, it's strange. Like I don't understand it, but that's very funny.
Something.
Right. It's yeah. So what is your favorite way to like work with spirit or with your deities or channeling or anything? Like, do you have any favorites?
I love art. So I
Mm.
like to like make art in as part of a spell. So if I'm making a promise, like making a deal, like saying, okay, I need this new thing in my life or I need this new direction, I will paint or
Hmm.
collage or draw. And usually it's, that takes up some room in my altar space where
Yeah.
that's like my focus for the next few weeks or months.
That's awesome. I actually have like my ancestors altar right here. I found out like when I first started getting into all this, one of my mentors, he's like my best friend, and it's a long story. But him and my son are their souls are like and they're very connected. At birth, my son like wasn't breathing when he was born and stuff. So my friend like put a charm on him and all of this intense stuff. So that's a whole nother story. But it's just basically like he told me what his name was and how like we were koalas in a past life and his name was going to be Coda because my ex wanted me to name him after him and he wasn't even living in the state. He still doesn't live in the state. That's beside the point. But like, yeah. And then I had my son and I felt something was wrong. Like my heart was like sinking. Like I could feel there was something wrong. Like I felt like I was going to die. And then all these doctors came in and rushed him into like onto a breathing machine and I asked the nurse, like he wasn't moving or anything, and the nurse was like, we don't know. Like I was like, is he gonna be okay? They're like, we don't know. So I texted my friend and I was like, what's gonna happen? And like a month after he came home, like I brought Coda home, he was fine. I find out that like they're still like connected, like spiritual life support, like to the point where like he tried to take this charm off and like he wasn't able to breathe on his own at that point because his lungs were still so underdeveloped. So it was like a whole thing. And it's like what the like kicker was for me is that in the NICU on every screensaver was a baby and a mom koala bear. So I was just like, oh my god, okay, like this is very real.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and he's 20 now. He just turned 20. So he's way like younger than me, but he's, a mentor to me. And he told me about like how my ancestors are Aztec and I have native roots. And I didn't know about any of this until like he told me. And it just resonated because I've always felt very like strongly about Christopher Columbus and all of that. Like I've always felt some type of way ever since like high school. Like I was like, this is wrong. And so it made sense. And then when I looked up in my spirit encyclopedia about Hutzpahli, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but he's an Aztec warrior. And a hummingbird was like his, I don't know if it was his, he had like a hummingbird like helmet, I'm pretty sure. And it's funny because my grandpa who just passed away, he also loved hummingbirds and like birds of all kinds. And the tree outside my window always has birds on it, blue jays. Like a nightingale showed up the other day when I was doing a couple weeks ago when I was doing a podcast with someone else, and she had just done a reading in her live a few days ago where a nightingale showed up on the cards, and she
Oh,
was like, oh,
cool.
this is, and then I was like, okay. And then the crows and the ravens because of Odin, they're always there because I've been working with Odin for a little bit now.
Yeah.
And that's great. But it's funny because I have like when I was looking him up, my ADHD is awful, by the way. But I was looking up my Aztec ancestor, and his favorite colors are turquoise and black, and my favorite color is turquoise.
Oh,
Like
wow.
always loved it. So I have all these paintings like above the altar for him. I have like 3 different little paintings with like here, I'll show you real quick because they're right there. Let's see if I can flip the screen. Yes, okay. So they're like little
Oh,
stars.
wow. Beautiful.
And I do like the pour art, and I actually just started to do like I'm starting to offer doing like light language and runes and like stuff like that, sigils, symbols of all kinds on like whatever you want to get on there for and I did that like for Christmas for gifts for people. I was like, because I got a calligraphy set, I was like, I want to use it for this. So but it's funny that you say that because I do the same thing with my artwork. I'm like, this for you and this for you.
Yeah.
They love to paint, and that's like really where I started. And actually the last podcast I just did was with like she like for her work she does like channeled artwork, and like she does like oracle readings. It's really cool how she does her like channeling through art. It's really beautiful. So that's awesome. A lot of people seem to like, now that I'm like looking into like seeing like there's a lot more intuitive like artists out there than, because it really is like art is really just channeling, but like you sometimes you don't realize it like until you like look at it from that perspective, you know.
Definitely.
Okay, let's see. What are some things you wish you knew before you got into witchcraft and the spiritual practices? A couple things that you maybe wish someone might have told
I
you.
don't know. I mean, I think maybe that everybody's not as serious as I am. Like I tend to be a very serious person across the board, no matter what I'm doing. So
Mm,
it's, and I mean, I try to be lighthearted, but that's kind of on purpose because I
mm,
tend to take things very seriously and like dive in, like
yeah.
all of my spiritual planets are in Virgo. So it's like I become like this very hyper focused like person. Um, so I think I would have loved to have known that my spiritual life could be silly and still be sacred.
Yeah.
And if somebody would have shown me that earlier, that the silly is still sacred, or the lighthearted and the joyous is still sacred, I think that would have made a huge impact earlier. At least it would have helped me not take myself so seriously.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that 100%. Because that's how kind of how like when like I felt like everything was like earth shattering when I went through my first awakening. So I can understand that. Like I can be very like over analyzing things is what I do. What I used to do. I'm working on it. um, so let's see, what else do we have? Where do you see the spiritual community 10 years from now? Where would you like to see it?
Where would I like to see it? I would like to see it. I would like to see it take itself more seriously,
Mm.
because
Mm.
I think, certainly one of the things that's been frustrating for me, because I've been a practicing witch now for over 30 years. So
Yeah, wow.
it's like there are so many people who are dedicated and loyal, but they don't take it. They don't, and I don't mean take it seriously like do it more seriously. I mean take it seriously like it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have as much right to be here as Catholics or Protestants or Baptists or Jewish people or whomever, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
have as much right to be here and have faith communities and have nonprofit groups and have those kinds of support systems for ourselves and each other.
Yeah,
Then
without getting looked at like we're crazy.
yeah, because
Like,
most people have
yeah,
this aversion to organized religion, which I get makes perfect sense given our history of organized religion.
right.
But we're a lot easier to get rid of if we don't organize.
Yes. Yeah, I like to and to like kind of brush off. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
stay marginal, and that's really sad.
Yeah, it is. And it's like I don't get involved at all, and I don't really even like attract or see the drama, but I know that there's a lot of drama in that, and it's sad because it's just like what, like the whole point is to kind of have that like that love and acceptance and compassion for each other, and it's like you don't have to see it my way, like you know what I mean, like it. I understand there's things that are like important to be like, no, you know what I mean, to be like close practices or anything like that. Like that's important to be understood. And I think there is a lot of misinformation out there, and I would like to see that kind of change. But I understand what you mean. Like in order for us to be respected, we have to have that respect for
For
like
ourselves.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
honestly, like, I mean, I was one of the first people when I in New Orleans. I don't live in New Orleans anymore. I live in Los Angeles. But at the time, like, I was the first pagan minister to go into hospitals, to go into churches,
Right.
or hospitals and schools and universities, and it was hard. Like the people who were
Yeah.
the you know taking care of the clergy credentials and stuff were like, you're a who? You're a what? Like, well, I do have I have
Right.
work. So it's our version of seminary. So
Right. Right.
First Amendment and all that stuff, and they hated it, but they had to let me do it.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And it's I mean, people are scared of what they don't understand. And it's like with the I feel like there's been so much conditioning in society to like look at our community in a certain way, in a certain light. That's just not what it is. Just like how your dad was like, wait, what? Like people don't even like really get the concept of like what we're actually doing unless they take the time to listen. And most of the time they judge before they listen. And
Oh,
it's sad.
judging's easier. Judging
Exactly.
faster, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And you don't have to be proven wrong.
That's it.
Um, so what about one of the most like strange magical experiences like that you've had? The strangest encounters.
Strangest encounters. Okay. I would we used to put on this event called Celebrating the Goddess every year in New Orleans, and we would invite people from different traditions, religious groups, to speak at this conference every year. So this is when Silva Ravenwolf had just started writing. She had gotten her first book out, and she was on her second or third book at the time. And she was coming to New Orleans to do book signing. And the book that she was doing was on angels. And I was like, I was very skeptical.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get her to come and speak at our conference. So I went to her book signing, and it was a packed house. Like it was probably 100 people there. And the only spots left were like right in the front. And I was supposed to meet one of the other members of my circle there, but she was running late. So I was by myself when Silver started, and I was in a bad mood. I was in graduate school. I was working myself to death and didn't want to be there. And she did her whole spiel, and she's like, okay, I'm going to lead you all in a guided meditation. And I was like, oh my God, I just want to talk to you and leave. Right. Really bad attitude. And so I'm closing my eyes, and because I'm in the front, I can't show my disdain, right? Because you can see me, and I want to talk to her later about
right.
So I'm sitting there, and I felt this weird energy like above and behind me while she's starting. And I was like, the heck is that? Like, that does not feel normal. And I had this image of these wings, and I associated with a griffin, not with an angel, but this huge, like these just overarching wings that just expand beyond me.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I have not had this experience before. And every part of her meditation, I was there like 15-20 seconds before she said it.
Wow.
So like I found myself sitting like next to a well in my imagination, and was visited by this like person who had no face and blonde hair, and sorry, dog. And then she said, now you're going to meet your spirit angel guide or whatever. And I was just like,
wow.
Okay. And then she's like, so then the most weird part was, and I'm not wearing it, but my brother made this for me. This person, Angel Griffin, whatever we're going to call him, gave me something. It was a red stone that was like made as an amulet in a gold setting, just plain old flat bezel. And he said, this is strength of heart. And then Silver said, now your angel's going to give you a gift. And I mean, cuss words, like all of like, what the hell is going on here? And so when it was over, I was really like freaked out and drained. And yeah, I mean, was it me picking up on the unconscious, or was it me having a real experience? I don't really care. Whatever it was, totally freaked me out. And I told my brother about it. My brother's a jeweler, and he made it for me. So I wear it.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, you were telling that story in the beginning when you were talking about the wings. So I resonate with like being a fairy or dragon and all of that in a past life, and I've been told in readings like about that. So I get for the last month or so, I've been getting as a confirmation, and just like randomly during the day, just to hi, like is this like tingling, buzzing in like I call it my wing. It's my left shoulder blade, but I call it my wing because it's so like it's right there. And like I said, like I'm very like much feel like I am connected with the fairy realm and all of that. So that's so funny because like the whole time you're talking about the wings, like it was buzzing. So that's pretty interesting. And yeah, I fully believe in all of those. Like, I mean,
Oh yeah, I no longer am skeptical about angels after that. I just know there's something else. It's not, for me,
it's so much greater than,
yeah,
yeah.
it's just different and bigger. And
I've read that it's something that like that is the first thing that like from source or whatever, like that is the like a great, like greater even
the
than,
first emanation, yeah.
right. um so how do you feel like healing spiritually and healing mentally can like coincide? Because I
Oh,
really like,
yeah, I think they're dependent on one another. Like for the
yeah.
really hard, if somebody, as a therapist, if somebody doesn't have any kind of spiritual life, it's really hard because the core of healing is meaning.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Yeah.
find meaning somewhere. And it's perfectly fine to find that in a secular way, but everybody needs meaning.
Mm-hmm. We all need like some kind of something fulfilling to do, and yeah, to put our energy into, so we're not feeling however that bad, state that we're feeling. Because like I know for me, like when I got into recovery, I was, I had like a few months here, a few months there clean, and then I had a whole year, and then I relapsed because I was still in and out of this, unhealthy lifestyle and even relationship, like not blaming, but that's just what it was. And like once I got on my own and then I really dove into my spirituality, like everything changed. And like I always knew that I wanted to become a Reiki master, but once I like bought the book and I didn't have like a hyper focus on it, it happened so quickly. And I met my Reiki master like locally, and I didn't have to do it online. I didn't even have to pay her a dime. Like she wanted a painting, and like it was just really beautiful how it manifested so fast, and I was able to get my attunements within a year. And I believe that like you can heal without necessarily being attuned, but that really helped boost my confidence, and it really gave me something to focus on that gave me purpose at the time. So I think, yeah, I really think it's important, and I eventually want to like open up like a place for people. I'm already working on a shadow work course for people in recovery, and just any kind of, there's addictions of all kinds, so it's not just for that, but I feel like it's super important because there's a lot of like there's a couple of meetings out there now. Like I went to a meeting that was like a Buddhist based meeting where we meditated, and we even did yoga like toward the end and stuff. So there's a couple good meetings, but there's a lot of meetings that like rub people the wrong way because they're very one way, so I think it's important to like bring that, like, you don't have to have any like type of certain like belief, but as long as you like want to believe in yourself, and be better for yourself, like that's all it takes in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I eventually want to like help people in that because I think it's so important. Like I've been through so much and within the addiction that I went through, and now just like getting sober, like even just a couple days ago, I had to go through this whole thing with my psychiatrist, and now she like eventually like now she sent the script over, but she was saying she wasn't going to see me and all of this. It was like crazy. And I had to speak to like 3 different doctors, and they were all, and I'm already tapering off a certain medication. So it was just the whole thing. Like I've been writing about it. I'm going to put it in my book and stuff, but like, I understand everything happens for a reason. And this is probably something that needs to be spoken out and like advocated for. And I talked to my caseworker about it and everything. I think maybe she called or something, because she did end up sending it over. But it's just, it really like it really upset me because I just feel like not all doctors, but the ones that I was dealing with have that like condescending kind of like, like I can taper you off of it, but I can't give it to you, but I'm already tapering off of something else. And then the new primary that I'm about to switch from, because she told me I was at more risk of relapse if she gave me the medication. And like I understand like there's stuff about this medication with the other medication I'm on, but like 5 years ago, like they put me on these medications. So and I'm tapering off of one. So why would I stop that taper and start a new taper when I'm
Right.
already doing well with the first taper and I'm doing better than I've ever been doing? It just was like mind-boggling.
Mm.
And so I understand like to an extent, but at the same time, it was very frustrating. And I feel like if I wasn't in the place that I'm in, like that could have been setting me up to really fail. And like so I want to be able to help the people that like don't have like the the tools and the coping mechanisms that I've built over the last couple of years. Because like if that had happened to me a few years ago, like I would have been like, fuck this, so I think it's just so important to like advocate for that kind of stuff. And I just, like I said, like I think spirituality can really help. It helped me so much.
And it helps, it helps explain things, but it also gives you purpose, right?
Right.
Like if I'm making the effort to connect to something that's bigger than me, right? And you don't even have to call it God or divinity or goddess or anything. It just needs
Anything.
to be
Right.
humanity or the fact that I matter, right?
Right.
That in and
Right.
of itself can be enough.
Yes, absolutely. That the fact that like I'm here and like all of the little like perfect things that had to come into alignment for me to be here, like that alone, like you said, like I matter and I have a reason like to be here. So yeah. Do you actually do you believe that everything happens for a reason?
I don't, yes and no. I
Hmm.
believe that everything happens with a purpose.
Hmm.
I don't think that everything happens for a reason, meaning that I don't think that there's some big god or goddess in the sky who's got a plan and we're all
Hmm.
holding according to that plan. I think that we are the divine energy that's unfolding and learning and knowing itself. And so as we unfold and connect with other people and make changes and do things better or worse, that is divinity understanding its divine self.
Right.
So it's a purpose, but I'm not living out somebody else's plan for me.
Yes, that really does. That resonates a lot because it's yeah, like I wonder, like I mean, I know that like for me, like I believe in like there's some kind of a soul contract or like that we agree to before we come here, but we forget everything so that we're able to learn and we're able to grow and have these experiences without just knowing everything already. um but yeah, I don't think that there's someone just like checking things off like, okay, this happened.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's not, nobody's sitting back going, okay, and this is the part where Andrew does blah blah blah. Right.
Right,
It's,
right. Hmm. Um, have you ever dealt with discrimination because of your beliefs? And how did you work through it?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the scariest one was when I was in New Orleans. I was a chaplain I was the pagan chaplain for the pagan students group. And they would have these chaplains meetings. So all of the different chaplains would get together once a month and talk about what's happening on campus.
Hmm.
And there were these two or three Protestant ministers who were very unhappy that I was there.
Hmm.
And they made my life very difficult. Um, and the worst part was one of these meetings, and I'd been there now at that point, probably over a year. And one of them had been trying to get rid of me. And the university was like, First Amendment, can't get rid of her. Like,
Hmm.
she was sponsored by students who want her to lead them. That's
Yeah.
how it works. Um, and he threw a temper tantrum in the meeting and got this close to my face, screaming at me that if he had the power, he would set me on fire right there. And that I deserved nothing better, that I was an abomination before God.
Holy shit.
And the people that rescued me in that moment were the Catholic priest and the rabbi. They
Hmm.
they got up out of their chairs and got him away from me and stood in front of him and told him to back off.
Right, right.
I was the only
Wow.
woman in the room, and I was very clearly the most minority religion person,
Mhm.
and
Wow.
they weren't having it. And that was so, I still get choked up talking about it.
Yes.
But
I
it's
can
so powerful for me to feel that level of hatred, number one, for something that he didn't know me. Like we've
right.
gotten into a lot of arguments, but he didn't know me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that, and got into a couple of arguments with my father-in-law a few times, which was not fun. But that
Yeah.
wasn't discrimination. That was just arguing. But that was frightening. I was scared to walk to my car. I was scared to,
I would be too. Yeah, that's insane. I mean, and that's really something that like I think that like you said, if we become more organized, that will go away slowly. It's already going away slowly, but a little bit less slowly.
well, it gives
Because
it, yeah, if we accept, if we say, no, we are legitimate and our beliefs are legitimate, you cannot stand in front of me and delegitimize my belief system just because you're uncomfortable with it,
right.
right?
Absolutely.
Then
Absolutely.
it's much harder, right?
Right. Exactly. And it gives I feel like it'll give them a little bit less like leeway with it because they'll feel less like like they have a right or something,
Yeah.
because like I mean that's just how their brains work, and it's really sad, but it doesn't give there's no excuse. Like that is insanely messed up. I'm
Oh,
really
it's
sorry.
terrible. Oh,
Yeah,
better
it's
now.
just like yeah, it's getting it always getting better, but it's some of the things that we have to go through. And I mean, we are blessed to be living in a time where we're not being like, burned at the stake, but I'm still surprised that it's still this like way in any way, because I mean personally, like I just it doesn't make sense, but at the same time I get like the conditioning and everything. It needs to That's what really needs to change.
Well, things don't change. Things don't. I mean, I guess where I want to encourage any of your listeners or anybody who's interested in this is like you know, things don't change because a whole group of people, a giant mass of people changes things. Things change because a small group of dedicated people make a huge difference.
Right.
And that's the difference, right? Like New Orleans is a very different place because of the work that me and my church and my congregation did down there.
Right.
You can be Wiccan and pagan in New Orleans, and people are kind of like, meh. I mean, there's still some
Yeah.
people who are, vehemently against it, but it's not what it was 20 years ago. I mean, that was
Uh-huh.
1994 that we started. So
That's when
it's
I
not.
was born. That's
Oh,
pretty
I'm so old.
cool.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, that's it's a different place. And even now, I mean, California, other places, people are we have made a huge difference in the culture because now there are other groups that are saying, like if you go into a Catholic church or even a synagogue, people will say, well, God's not a man, right?
Wow.
And that's because of Wiccans and witches and pagans standing up and saying, why is this idea still the idea?
Right.
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 And
And
people
yes.
have taken that on. And even in other faiths, they're like, yeah, it doesn't, that's just, that rhetoric is not
It's
useful.
like a human construct to the divine, and it doesn't when it comes like when you really like begin to like understand that you can never fully understand the divine, then that's where you see the disconnect, and there's no gender of all that is. So yeah.
Yeah. And the closest you would, if you're gonna really raise the question, what's the closest thing to divinity? It would be a woman.
It would be a woman. Oh yeah, I've researched a lot about that, and it makes a lot it makes all the sense that it would be a woman. But let's see. What does being a spiritually awakened like witch mom like mean to you? Like what does it mean to you to be like a mentor to
I'm glad you clarified because I don't want to put myself up as though I'm spiritually awakened.
yeah.
I would offer that I try to be spiritually aware, but I don't want to put myself in a category that says that I'm some
Mhm.
spiritual authority because
I
um
appreciate that.
uh I mean it means a lot to me because I think so many people are hungry for a spiritual life that has meaning to them, especially people who feel like they don't see themselves in the traditions that they were raised in,
Mm-hmm.
or the traditions
Yes.
that surround them. So if you don't see yourself there and you're still hungry for a spiritual life, then you
Right.
deserve to have somebody help you develop it yourself, help create it that
Yeah.
it make so that you feel connected, right?
Yes,
That's
100%.
that's what I love.
I love that too. I really do. And like that's another reason, like you were one of the first people I thought of when I wanted to get this started, because I just love everything you represent. And I just I want to have the knowledge and the wisdom and the experience to help people like you do, like on the level and everything that you have. And I just appreciate it. I really do. I know I'm speaking for a lot of people when I say that.
That means the world to me, Andrea. Thank you so much.
I'm happy it does. Okay, I just have a couple more questions. If you could give any newly baby witches one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
To believe in yourself,
Yes.
to believe in your path, to believe in the work that you do, to not let somebody tell you how to believe, how to work, what your spiritual practice is or should be. Like,
Uh-huh.
I can tell you traditions, I can teach you techniques, I can teach somebody methods. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the same as having a belief system, a belief practice for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, regardless of their faith, regardless of their practice, everybody has a unique system.
Yes.
It's going to have some similarities, right? But it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to be identical, and it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be.
Absolutely. That's what my whole thing was when I was being raised in the church, and they were saying you have to every single one of these things you have to believe exact as it says here.
Mhm.
And I just didn't make every single person has a different life experience and perspective. How in the world are we all on the
Mhm.
identical same word and letter of the same yeah. So I completely agree with that. We all can have a different way of getting to the divine, but and we can teach each other and learn from each other. We just have to be open to that, being willing to do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you think about it, we're both speaking English right now, but what you go and write in your book or in your work or your poetry is going to be different from what I write in my book or my work or my poetry. It doesn't take away from English,
Right.
and it doesn't take away from your work or my work. It's just,
Right.
it's a language. So allow it, let it evolve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's it's all about evolution. I feel that's what the existence is. It's we're constantly, whether it's just getting a little bit older or whether it's consciously putting that work in it. We don't have to always consciously be working and working and working. That's too, that'll burn you out. It's important to remember you're human, and I have to remind myself of that a lot, because I'm so hungry for the knowledge,
Mm.
and the wisdom and all of that. I always have been. So but it's important to remember that we are human, and it's okay to take a day off or take some time to just, you don't have to watch something on TV. It doesn't have to always be a channeling.
Yeah. And you don't have to, and it's okay to have doubt. You
Mhm.
can, if you have doubt, if you're really struggling, I don't know how to, I want to, I kind of believe these two things. I'm not sure which one. Well, then take your time.
Right.
Explore them both. Explore all of it. Don't force yourself into a lane just
Right.
because you think it's, you have to or you should. Should is the
Oh,
death of spiritual life.
so funny that you say that, because I was asking Odin a question about what I should do a few days ago, and he was not answering. And I was like, is it in my highest good to do this? And
Mm,
then he answered, and I'm just okay.
there you go.
It's so funny you say that.
No, that's
He's
it.
literally,
That's it.
yeah. And it makes a lot of sense, because that's where the free will comes in again. It can't tell you what you should or shouldn't.
Mhm.
You just do whatever. Yes. And I have that, I have books on I was saying, I've studied Buddhism, and I honestly want to get back into studying Christian mysticism and like a little bit like the Book of Enoch and stuff like that, because that's, I think, is like my next step in like my shadow work journey, because I had a lot of like religious trauma, especially in that first awakening. There was a lot of like religious trauma and stuff that I'm still dealing with, and I think like the next step is to really delve into the research, so the next time that like if like and when the next time it comes up from my dad that like, you know, go to church or whatever, I can be like, well, read this, you know, or, you know, so, and like, I have, you know, so like, have you ever heard of the Book of Enoch? But like, I haven't like studied it in depth. And I think that if I do, like, it'll be a little bit more, because I know that, you know, we choose everything before we can, like I was saying. And it's like, I obviously chose this family to like help them grow and learn and like stuff too. So I have to, that's like something that I definitely have to look into. It's just, I think I've been procrastinating it a little bit.
Well, I think, you know, that might also be part of the shadow work, is like, okay, if I'm procrastinating, there's probably something under here, right, that needs some love and attention. And
absolutely,
you know, if this is a bone of contention with your dad, maybe the two of you need to just sit down and have a deep conversation about what you like. Here's what you probably believe similar things.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I got a book for Christmas 2 Christmases ago. I haven't read it yet because I've been so into like the spiritual aspect, but I got a couple books like about the deep state and stuff like that. And he surprisingly like was like, oh, like, it's like, he was like, what is that? Like, and so there are definitely like a lot of similarities. That's why we butt heads so much. But yeah, it's, and like you said, it's part of my shadow work, that religious aspect of things, and just like finding the like the common ground, because there is always like there's, if we all are, this is like another thing, like if we're all like decent human beings and we're doing things like not even the right way, but just like out of the goodness of our hearts and living in like a state of like love, and you know, you don't, I'm not out, obviously you don't always have to be happy, and like, but if you're like not going out to maliciously like hurt somebody, or doing things like because like you want to make somebody's day a bit worse, but actually maybe doing things to make someone's day better, or just like being, you know, the best you that you can be, I don't think you're going anywhere like bad after this life. So there's little things like that, that I definitely like would love to talk about with him someday.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see, I think I have like one or two more. What does spiritual evolution mean to you? This is like the final question I'm asking everybody.
Spiritual evolution. Well, I mean, I have two answers for that. One is not a very positive answer, because I feel like there are people and forces at work in the world that want to direct that discourse in a negative way. So they want, and they believe in evolution in the same sense as like social Darwinism, where
I was just gonna say,
like survival of the fittest, which to me that's garbage, right? Like I don't think that's gonna help anything. And I think
survival mode is,
and I think there's a whole group of people of different faiths who are trying to rush to the finish line of Armageddon because they can't tolerate the difficulty. They can't tolerate knowing or working through their knowing. That's one side. And on the other side, I think there's a whole emerging group of people who desperately want to find a connection to themselves, to each other, to the earth, and they don't know what to do with it. And so I think there's a lot of reaching and seeking, which is good, but we have to provide structures to help people get there, regardless of faith, like whether you're Catholic or you're Baptist or Jewish, you have to find the place to connect.
Right.
Connection is the issue, not the doctrine that gets you there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I was saying, like everybody, like you can take a million different ways to get to the top of a mountain, like, but you're still going to the same peak.
Right. And the view is the same, regardless of how you get there. You're gonna be exactly the same valleys and the same beauty and the same amazing. You have the same awe.
Right, exactly. And it's like you said, it doesn't matter how you get there. It's about having your journey for what it is and not trying to turn it into someone else's, or, obviously like learn and grow with each other, but realize like you said, we're all sovereign beings and we all have that collective consciousness and that collective, connection. But at the end of the day, like what resonates for you and me, it may have similarities, but it's going to be a little bit different because you're you and I'm me.
And that's beautiful.
Yes, that's what makes, like, if we were all the same, it just wouldn't be life.
It would be sterile. It would be a supermarket.
Mhm. It would not be interesting.
No.
Well,
I used to say all the time to my students that, like, if we were all supposed to be the same, then however you envision creation, it would have been one human being and there would have been nothing else.
right, exactly. Because what would the point be?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really happy we had this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing the recording. I'm so grateful for being patient and understanding with me, because it's, like you said, it's Mercury retrograde and this is a whole new venture for me.
It has been Mercury retrograde for me since exactly since we went into the shadow of Mercury. I was just like, oh,
since the beginning of this year, it feels like I've been just like pummeled with like one thing after another. I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna push through. I want this. Like I do. I promise. I'm not gonna go back. I promise. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. It was so much fun to talk with her and get to know her better. I will be sure to link her in the description so you guys can go check her out. But other than that, have an awesome day, and I will see you back here next week.